Good afternoon and welcome to NYFP. In midday trade on this Thursday, the major U.S. stock averages are trading mixed after a choppy open. Now the latest economic data releases as well as central bank rate decisions are being digested. Joining me to weigh in on the ECB rate decision as well as other Eurozone developments is Sandra and Navidi of BeyondGlobal. Sandra, good afternoon. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Remy.
Well, we got the ECB rate decision and Mario Draghi's comments, so I do want to start out with the rate decision first. Were you surprised by what came out?
No, this was expected. Draghi wants to keep his last policy bullet because the Eurozone is still struggling. The recovery is weak, the outlook is weak, risks persist such as weak demand and the implementation of structural reforms.
And we did get mixed economic data out from the Eurozone earlier this week, so it's not surprising what Mario Draghi said, especially regarding the downside risks to the economy. He also said that monetary policy would remain accommodative. But what do you make of what we can expect from the ECB going forward?
One of the most interesting things to watch is whether or not they will implement a negative interest rate. That is controversial within the within the ECB. But one of the problems is the transmission mechanism, just like in the US, meaning that the extra money that's being created doesn't find its way to the real economy. So they want to incentivize banks to lend. But the problem is, first of all, it may not work. It may be better to create a structural framework for banks to be comfortable to lend. And also the danger is that banks may pass on the extra cost to the consumer. Another issue to watch is credit to companies, small and medium-sized companies, because the problem is that companies that are viable, that are solvent, but they don't have liquidity because they don't get their bills paid, and how the ECB may help this process, that's going to be interesting to watch.
And Sandra, now that I've gotten your take on the ECB policy rate decision as well as some of those comments out from Mario Draghi, I do want to take a step back and ask you about wine. Now, when you think about Europe, there's so many regions from which you can get great wine. But now, regarding China's trade tariffs, we did get a little bit of interesting action. Now, given that China announced probes into European wine, and this did come following Europe's investigation into China-made solar panels, what's actually going on here?
Well, I think it all started out with the dumping issue, dumping prices of solar panels, and dumping prices are a problem. And that, well, first of all, what it means is either that they sell goods below the price of production or for less expensively than they are being sold at home. And of course, you can't compete with that. On a side note, it's actually good for the consumer in Europe because they would get the goods cheaper, but of course it undermines competition, so it's not a constructive thing to do. But the risk is that we will see a trade war from this, and it's a self-reinforcing negative feedback loop. We've seen it before, and rather than argue it out in the open in this aggressive tone and be retaliatory, it's better to exercise quiet diplomacy behind the scenes and discuss it.
And speaking about diplomacy, I do want to get your take on Latvia. Now, the nation did get the official endorsement to join the Eurozone, but it was just only yesterday that we heard about whether or not the union itself would be staying together. So what does this move tell you?
It's an expression of confidence, it's a positive sign, and it shows that in this new globalized world that's very interconnected, bigger is actually better. Very small companies have less leverage, so it's in their interest to align themselves with strong partners, and especially countries that are on the cusp between East and West. I think they'd rather align themselves early with the West rather than being absorbed sometime later down the road by the East.
Okay, Sandra, well, thank you so much for your insight today, and as always, thanks for your analysis.
Thank you, Remy.